Be the Talk, episode 262, featuring Linda Hayles. Welcome to Be the Talk. We go behind the talk 7 days a week for tips and techniques to help you change the world. I'm Nathan Eckel, and a talker myself. I'm interviewing others who change the world with their talk. You can too, even if you've never given a talk before. Let's get started with today's show. We are live with Linda Hayles. Linda, are you ready to talk?
I am ready. I am always ready to talk.
Women come to Linda Hayles when they want to figure out why they're not getting the results they want in love, business, and life. High-achieving women sometimes flow in a masculine form, but Linda believes that women can be both feminine and powerful. Linda Hayles, welcome to the talk.
Thank you so much for having me.
So your talk is called Change the Destination. And as you say, in the bio, there's a masculine energy, there's a feminine energy. Business sometimes often favors the one kind, and then women often can be in a little bit of a self-perceived disadvantage. And I love how you're flipping all this stuff on its head. So Linda, please take us behind the talk.
Well, let me tell you, when I did the talk in March, I always say, you've got to be a product of your, whatever it is that you're pushing, right? You're doing the Be the Talk podcast, so you have a podcast. You did a TED Talk. You interviewed people who did TED Talks. For me, when I stepped on that stage and the topic was actually bridges, but we could play with it. So I chose Change the Destination. My talk was at a university in the College of the Cayman Islands. So my demographic were going to be like millennials. Well, and this was, I'm interrupting, but the bridges, that was the women's event, right? No, the bridges was actually the TED Talk. That was the actual topic, but you could play with it within your title. Yeah. Okay. Right? But the people in my audience were millennials from, people from college. And for me, it was so powerful because I was speaking to the audience from my own experience of changing the destination of my own life.
Powerful stuff. So how did you do that? How did you change the destination of your life? You were going in one direction, then you had to pivot because you weren't getting the results you wanted. So what did you do and where did you go?
Awesome. Thank you for asking me. So you mentioned your age a little while ago, and I'm going to mention mine. I'm not ashamed. I'm 45 years old.
Woohoo!
And so,
Generation X represent. Oh, yeah.
And so I was a stay-at-home wife for like the second part of my life, which was my entire adult life up until very recently, up until about 10 years ago. Up until that time, I literally coasted in the passenger seat of my life, which is why the TED Talk spoke to me so greatly. I was a passenger in my own life. I threw myself into motherhood, which I love. I do not regret being a mom. I think I know the first speaker said she was like the best mom, but I'm like right up there in the top 10. But after, my divorce happened and I found myself in this place, like, what do I do with my life? I'm not ready to, what do I do? And being at ground zero, like when you've hit rock bottom, that's probably the best place to be because you really don't have anything to lose. You truly can rebuild yourself, remake your life. And so I changed the destination. I went back to school. I got my degree in psychology, human behavior. Then I began to, speak to women. My whole relationship coaching business was birthed from that. But then the market was asking me, Linda, how are you coaching? How are you doing this? How are you doing your TED Talk? And so I began to expand. And here I was in the Cayman Islands, fulfilling two of my biggest dreams, to become a TEDx speaker and to do it internationally. And so I was truly speaking from my own experience on that stage. I was living it up and I was giving it to them truly live. I just changed my destination on this stage. Literally, you can too.
So there was a lot riding on that. So international, you fly out there and you give this talk that's like a stake in the ground and it changes the trajectory of your life. And
Absolutely.
you're changing the trajectory of your life as you're making the statement live in front of a whole bunch of people after really 10 years of a challenge that is very, very common. So many women are single moms and go through that exact process, all of the feels, all of the challenges, all of the unknowns. And this was just back in, you said, March.
This was in March. And so I literally, when I speak about it now, even if you're looking at me, it's hard not to get emotional over it because I am a living, walking billboard that you can change your life whenever you decide, and you can do the thing, whatever that is, and be happy.
So the last 6 months have been a really happy roller coaster from you, it sounds like.
A whirlwind, because I was actually stuck in, I only got to do relationship coaching. My degree is in psychology. It felt comfortable because I came out of an abusive marriage. But the truth is, human behavior is predictable, whether you have a relationship with your money, a relationship with your work ethic, a relationship with your children, a relationship with men. I can talk to you about that. Literally, you and I can talk and your whole life can change. I'm not bragging, but it's a little bragging.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is why we dig under the talk, because, hey, you get Talk Universe. We all want to get on that stage, give the talk to change the world, have a nice branded stage that is going to help sharpen whatever it is that you stand for, whatever you're going through, whatever solutions that you offer. And that's exactly what Linda's talking about right now. I mean, when women need to change their trajectory of their life and something's not working, they talk to Linda and she sets them straight, because she's the example of this. Powerful stuff.
Absolutely. And I'm telling you not to get on here and speak about, but women need to know that there's someone out there just like them. My credit suffered greatly because of my divorce. And for many years, I was like, oh, I can't do anything with my life. My credit is bad. Girl, take control of that thing. You can fix it. You can do it. That's my motto. You can do it.
You can do it. Do it, ladies. So, I mean, I guess what I want to do in my last question to you before we pivot over here, Linda, I mean, sure. A year ago, you're prepping for this talk. What were you doing? Were you feeling the pressure? Did you put a little bit of pressure on yourself? Because this is going to be your big stake in the ground. How did you get out there, walk out, and successfully do this talk?
Well, I live in Houston, Texas, and that is home to the largest church in the nation, Lakewood Church. I speak Spanish. I'm Puerto Rican. I'm bilingual. I have been translating at Lakewood Church for Pastor Joel Osteen and the entire pastoral staff for about 2.5 years.
Oh, wow.
And so there's one particular preacher there. His name is John Gray. He's very powerful, very charismatic. He's when he speaks, he just uses all of these phrases. And when I translate, I use the same intonation, the same, everything. And so translating at Lakewood truly prepared me.
Wow.
To take the stage, because my speaking skills, every Wednesday I'm translating, every Sunday I'm translating. And so that was my coaching.
And let's just if this is starting to ring a bell about translating from the stage, this isn't really a stage. This is like a basketball arena, right? This is like 25,000 people. This is a sports arena that Linda is standing on and translating for one of the top public figures, and most, in spite of himself, really one of the most controversial public speakers, just because the guy is so positive. He will never say a negative thing.
He'll never,
ever.
It's never religious.
Yes.
It's all about living your best life.
Yeah. And he gets so much flack for that. And yet you'll never hear him saying anything negative. I remember the hurricane last year, and there was all this stuff that happened, and he ultimately was completely vindicated. I've heard all kinds of stories, but anyway, so that stage. All right, that stage. So Linda was prepared because she was learning from some really masterful folks.
Speakers.
And, yes. So what's your final word before we pivot over to the Blitz round here, Linda?
Listen, truly change the destination. You have an internal GPS. It's like your check engine light or whatever. When it doesn't feel right, when you hate your job, listen to that thing. Listen to it. Listen, if you hate your job, you want a raise, guess what? You can give yourself a raise within the next 3 weeks. Apply for another job at another company and ask for more money. It's that simple. I literally came to Houston 5 years ago, and that's what I did. I came here making $39,000 a year, and by the end of that year, I had given myself a $21,000 raise. Why? Because I left the company and went somewhere else. You're not a tree. Move.
Oh, this is powerful. We're about to pivot over to the Blitz round. We've been talking to Linda Hayles. Her talk is called Change the Destination. We're going to hear more from Linda over in just a moment in the Blitz round. People ask, how could I start a 7-day-a-week podcast? It's because of what I've learned from my mentors. Some of the best mentors in history aren't around anymore. They've left hours of one-on-one mentoring behind in their books. Each month at Classics on Tap, I record a new chapter from a classic business book to help you make a difference. Download your first chapter at classicsontap.com. And we're back for the Blitz round. We are here with Linda Hayles. She already had a kind of a not so final word of advice that I gave over there. And I can't wait for the next one. But now it is time for the Blitz round. I'm going to ask Linda a series of either or questions related to the preparation and performance of her recent branded talk. Linda, are you ready?
I am ready.
Were you invited to speak or did you apply?
I applied. And it was not my first time applying. I had actually given up because I had applied so many times, but like so many people, we did not follow through. I was like, well, I didn't hear back from them, whatever. This time, I believe heavily and greatly in creating your life. If you haven't noticed, that's my theme. I said, I'm going to apply for this talk out of the country. I'm going to go get my passport. Like it's already a done deal. And that's what I did. And I started telling everyone, I'm going to the Cayman Islands. So, yeah.
Well, and that's why in the Get Accepted course, we hammer on that piece. It's like, what did Linda do? She stacked the deck in her favor. She made it happen. She made the numbers work for her. Powerful stuff. Are you a memorizer, an improviser, or a blender, Linda?
I am a blender. I believe, my personality type is not one that if I memorize, I'm just going to sound so scripted and not make my impact. I use my hands a lot, my voice, you know what I mean? Like I am a speaker. So I need to know what the key things are. And for me, it was great that that we had the PowerPoint slides because they kept me on like, oh, I got to say this at this particular slide. Let me not get ahead of myself. But I knew what I was saying, but my delivery was it. I couldn't have scripted that. It was real. So I'm a blender.
Linda, what's a tip, tool, or technique that helped you?
A technique that helped me was practice because of my personality type. I can be over improviser. I could be like winging it. This was not the time to wing it. And so one of my biggest weaknesses is the details. And so I think people, instead of running away from their weaknesses, they need to know what that is and work on it to improve it or delegate it. But in this case, I couldn't delegate it. I had to get on that stage and do it. So I had to prepare, practice.
So this is the cut for time question. What was the most painful part of your talk that you had to cut out?
Okay, this was it was I had exactly what I wanted to say for my final slide. It was going to be very impactful. But then somebody was in the front, like doing the flashlight like this. And I was like, oh my God. Okay, bye. And so you can't really tell that when you watch my talk. But I knew that the grand finale that I had prepared, I didn't deliver it. And then when I got off the stage, they were like, oh, you had 3 more minutes. And I was like, well, why are you flashing the thing like that, man? But that was, I should have just been like, okay, that's letting me know I need to hurry. But instead I kind of panicked inside, even though you can't tell because I'm so smooth.
Yeah, well, you're very smooth. What should be smooth, if you're part of a volunteer team or if you're an organizer listening to this right now, I think that the takeaway is make sure your speakers know where the real signal is, the monitor. I've heard of very dramatic things that speakers can do when you're starting to wind down the time, and make sure that we're not putting undue mixed signals or pressure before the time on our speakers so that they kind of truncate their amazing ending. But I'm sure, Linda, it just sounded just fine. The rest of us never know, which is exactly why I ask that question. Here's my final question for you. What was the most, actually it's my second to final. Okay. What is your most unexpected, strange, or just plain weird thing that happened before your talk or during your talk?
The thing, and it keeps happening, it's just the surreal moment It was 2009 when I watched my very first TED Talk. It was Gary Vaynerchuk. We're not even going to talk about Gary. And at that point, I was a stay-at-home mom with a GED. I really didn't have an idea of where it's spreading, but the seed was planted in my soul, and it continued to grow. And 8 years later, the fact that I was standing on that elusive red dot, that I was impacting people outside of the country, that was unexpected. And so you see how I'm getting emotional?
Oh, yeah.
Even when I delivered it then, to think about it now is still unexpected that me, I can impact people. It's surreal still to this moment.
You know, the number one thing as I talk to people or we have a Get Accepted course for people, the number one thing that I get in terms of, I don't even want to call it an objection, but just a question. People say, hey, I don't have an idea worth spreading. They say, I don't know what to talk about. Nobody would want to hear from me, which we know is a complete lie. And that's the whole reason for these talks. It's democratized, short form ideas that are idea centric instead of speaker centric. What would you say, Linda, to that person listening to this, say, hey, I want to give that talk, but I don't know what to say, and I don't think I have anything worth sharing? What would you say to them?
I would say, first of all, if that's you, find someone like Nathan. Find someone like I coach people, right? But I'm not here to promote that. Find someone who's already done it. I mean, Tony Robbins says, if you want to shorten the curve to success, find someone who's already done what you've done and then duplicate what they did. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel. You do have a message. It's inside of you. Your life experience has served you. It has brought you for such a time as this. It's there, but you need someone who is gifted in taking it out of you. It's like if you buy a race car and it has all this horsepower, but you don't really know how to drive it. So you never get the full race car feeling. You just driving around a Hemi. But if you went to learn how to drive, that way, you could definitely take the potential out of that engine. That's exactly how it is. If you have a desire to do it, find someone like Nathan, find a program where they can pull it out of you because you do have an idea worth sharing.
So we've been talking in the Blitz round with Linda Hayles, and her talk is called Change the Destination. You can watch that talk at our show notes page at BeTheTalk.com. We'll have a clickable link there. You can also connect to her on LinkedIn at Linda Hayles. Linda, Linda, Hayles, Hayles. Linda Hayles on LinkedIn. We'll have a link right there on BeTheTalk.com in the show notes page. We'll be right back with Linda Hayles in just a moment for the final word of advice. Everyone wants to change the world, but not everyone knows the first step. Before you can change the world with your talk, it has to be selected. So grab the templates, timelines, and tools that I use to get my talk selected at BeTheTalk.com. And we're back with Linda Hayles. It is time for the final word of advice for Talk Universe. What is it?
Create the life that you want and not the life that was given to you. Your circumstances, what you were born into, you cannot control. But after a certain age in your adult life, you actually have been creating the life you're living now. So create the one that you love. That's my takeaway.
Linda Hayles, thank you so much for coming on the talk today and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to Be The Talk. For tips and resources to help you change the world, go to BeTheTalk.com. See you tomorrow.